And it is my pleasure to welcome Reverend Paul Johnson, who will be speaking to us today on cultivating delight.
I want to begin this morning by reading a piece from Dr. John Kabat-Zinn, who was a professor emeritus at the University of Massachusetts Medical School, from his book, Everyday Blessings. First child off at college, freshman year, arrives home at 1:30 a.m. for Thanksgiving, driven by a friend. When had called earlier to say he would not make it home for dinner, as we had hoped, we were all disappointed. And for a few moments, there had been more than a slight current of annoyance in me. We leave the door unlocked, as arranged, having told him to wake us up when he arrives. No need. We hear him come in. The energy is young, vital, spilling over even in his attempts to be quiet. He comes upstairs. We call to him whispering so as not to wake his sisters. He comes into our darkened room. We hug. My side of the bed is closer to him than Mila's. He lies down across my chest, backwards kind of, extends himself and embraces us both with his arms, but even more with his being. He is happy to be home. He lies here, draped over my body, sideways, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Any trace of annoyance at the lateness of the hour and disappointment about him not making it by dinner time evaporate instantly. I feel happiness radiating from him. There is nothing over exuberant or manic here. His energy is joyful, content, calm, playful. It feels like old friends reunited. And beyond that, the familiar celebration. He is at home now, here in our darkened room. He belongs. The bond is palpable among the three of us. A feeling of joy fills my chest and is accompanied by a series of images of my life with him, captured in the fullness of the moment. This huge 19-year-old lying across me, who I held in my arms as much as possible until he could and would wriggle out and run into the world, now is here with his scruffy beard and powerful muscles. He is my son. I am his father. Mila is his mother. Well, he leaves and he has so much energy. He has to watch a movie and so forth. And Mila and John try to sleep, and they finally do so. But he says in the morning, as I go to work, he's still sleeping. But my whole day is suffused with knowing that I will see him when I come home. He goes on to say that in such experience, moments are, he said, in my experience, such moments are abundant, but I find that they too easily go by unnoticed and unappreciated unless I make an effort to see them and capture them in awareness. I just love that reading. Every time I look at it and go back to it, I'm reminded of my love for my children, Kristen and David. And I remember their first visit home after going off to university, each of them, and how great it was to welcome them home. And I remember my own going home for the first time after being away at college for Thanksgiving and realizing there was kind of a new relationship with my parents. What was this going to be like? And then giving in to that feeling of family love and appreciation. But John Kabat-Zinn goes on in this piece to suggest that this blissful, delightful moment could have been subverted by his initial annoyance that his son didn't make it home for dinner. And how many times do our children or others annoy us in this way? But happily, he did not center his attention upon that annoyance, and thus was fully open to this wonderful, delightful experience. And he goes on to suggest that this moment-to-moment, non-judgmental awareness of present experience is a wonderful gift of life to all of us. But how do we cultivate it? How do we cultivate it? Well, he is a Buddhist practitioner, and he suggests to follow your breath, just as we did earlier in the meditation provided so nicely for us. And he said, according to Buddhist tradition, this will help you get back into the present and to the present delights. And, I agree with that. I have practiced that for a number of years on my morning walk. And I find, so often as you think about the coming day, you think about all the challenges there are, or some regrets you have about the past, but setting your attention on your breath helps me realize that the grass is greener and the sky is bluer and the pond is more beautiful and the cloud formations are more interesting by being in the present. I remember a number of years ago, I went to a Alban Institute Ministerial Development Conference, where a good portion of the conference was devoted to spiritual practice. And the leader one morning passed out an orange to all of us. And he said, I want you to take 15 to 20 minutes to eat this orange. Now, have you ever spent 15 to 20 minutes eating an orange? I had never. Usually you just down it as soon as possible. But slowly experiencing that orange for 15 minutes was a new experience to me. And I found another food which reflected to do it. I do it with a piece of cheddar cheese. So I just love this cheese that my wife Carol buys. And I'll take a relatively small sliver and devote a good period of time to eating just a little piece at a time. That exquisite delight which comes from that cheddar cheese. And then I find another insight from Thich Nhat Hanh, the Buddhist monk, who encourages us to stop and simply enjoy a sense of well-being in our bodies. He said, when we have a toothache, we know that not having a toothache is happiness or delight. But later, when we don't have a toothache, we don't treasure our non-toothache. Have you ever treasured your non-toothache? Practicing mindfulness helps us to appreciate the well-being that is already here. So a useful question to ask ourselves is, what is keeping me from delight in the present? Would it be concerns about my health, about my children, about some thought that we might be inadequate in some way? What am I fearing so that I cannot be in the present? This past week, well, the week before, we had long planned to be with our kids, around Thanksgiving or Christmas. But, this year the airline fares are so high and expensive that, the kids coming all the way to Florida would have been expensive. Our daughter Kristen is in New Jersey. Our son David and his partner are in Venice, California. So we were looking for cheap airfares, or where Carol and I could use our Delta points. And we found the place was Las Vegas, the cheapest possible. And we also had points to stay at a Marriott hotel too. So that's where we gathered, or that's where we planned to gather week before last. But we had this hurricane and our flight was canceled. Now, what's that? All flights were canceled, right? Going out of West Palm. And so we didn't know if we could get out there even for this get together. And we had, as a holiday treat, Carol had bought tickets for all of us to the Cirque du Soleil show at the Bellagio. And Carol and I had seen 2 other of their shows over the years. We were so much looking forward to that. But we missed the show because of our flight being canceled. And I was really disappointed. And we were going to miss about a day and a half with our kids when our flight was finally rescheduled. And I took it took me quite a while to get that out of my head. Well, my favorite philosopher, Epictetus, says, don't be concerned over things that aren't in your control. Well, I'm certainly not in control of hurricanes and airline schedules and cancellations, but it took me a while to exercise this discipline. Put your attention on the time you will have with your kids. And we had such a good time with them, extended conversations over meals and going to Hoover Dam and hiking in Red Rock Canyon and enjoying the Fremont Street experience downtown and doing some casino hopping one day. But it took that discipline. We're going to have to put that particular desire off to another time. But I was able to do that by being open to the delights of the trip, despite that disappointment. Now, I've titled my sermon, Cultivating Delight. And I first was thinking of cultivating gratitude or thanksgiving, because the Sunday before Thanksgiving. But I thought, often that suggests a duty that we should be thankful. And of course, that's true. I think gratitude for benefits received is something very important. But in this sermon, I wanted to center our attention on the experience of delight or joy rather than of duty. In fact, the secondary dictionary meaning for the word grateful is affording pleasure or contentment or meaning in life. And gratitude is a source of satisfaction or pleasure. So this morning, I'm not necessarily exhorting you to the duty of gratitude or thanksgiving, but I'm exhorting you to cultivate gratification or enjoyment. But it is interesting to know that some religious traditions consider enjoyment a duty. Have you realized that? This was a real strange thing to me, but I was reading a while back the book Where Judaism Differed by Rabbi Hillel Silver. And he claims that a significant stream of rabbinic tradition has held that each of us on the day of judgment will be held to account for the opportunities for enjoyment or delight that we stubbornly missed out on. Isn't that interesting? That's so different from the evangelical Christian tradition that I grew up in. Delight or enjoyment wasn't on the top of the list of things you should be aiming for. And I find that very, very, very interesting. So mindfulness, being able to live in the moment, I think is so important to us for cultivating delight. And secondly, I would suggest that we cultivate delight by planning for it. Even during this holiday season, how are we going to plan for delight? Remember a number of years ago, I was in minister in Princeton, and a couple blocks down from our house was the center for actually the best choral music in the country, I think, Westminster Choir College. That was their forte, was teaching choral work and conducting of choral works. And they would have this wonderful Christmas concert every year, but I somehow missed it. So many other things were going on because I didn't plan for it in time. So I said, well, this year I'm going to do it. I'm going to plan for this enjoyment. And I found out I couldn't go because of other church responsibilities with my church. What can I do? So I called up the director and I said, can I come to one of your rehearsals? And I went to the rehearsal, and it was a great experience to go to Westminster Choir College, but I had to plan for it. I enjoy playing table tennis. Any table tennis fans here? And we have the community where we live, Vista del Lago, has a wonderful table tennis table there, but I've never put a notice up on the board, anybody interested in playing table tennis. So I'm going to plan for that enjoyment to put that notice up and table. I also enjoy playing Scrabble. And how seldom Do I actually do it? How many of you like Scrabble? We ought to have a game night here or something where we play Scrabble to plan for it. You know, a third thing that I think helps us in cultivating delight is to bring out the literature that suggests this to us. And so many things, and I can't share all of them with you this morning, but I'm going to share two of them. The first is Walt Whitman, where he talks about miracles, everyday miracles. He says, I know nothing else but miracles, whether I walk the streets of Manhattan or dart my sight over the roofs of houses toward the sky, or wade with naked feet along the beach just in the edge of the water, or stand under trees in the woods, or talk by day with anyone I love, or sleep in bed at night with anyone I love, or sit at table at dinner with the rest, or look at strangers opposite me riding in the streetcar, or watch honeybees busy around the hive of a summer forenoon, or animals feeding in the fields, or birds, or the wonderfulness of insects in the air, or the exquisite, delicate curve of the new moon in spring. These, with the rest, one and all, are to me miracles. To me, every hour of the light and dark is a miracle. Every cubic inch of space is a miracle. Every square yard of the surface of the earth is spread with miracles. Such a wonderful piece. And you know, many times when I've been on the New York City subway system, I have thought back on that line, or look at strangers opposite me riding in the streetcar. And I look at people on that subway car, and each life is a miracle. Each life is a miracle. And I do some surmising. I wonder what this person's life is like, et cetera, et cetera. It's kind of an interesting exercise of delight. And then I want to end with that poignant scene from Thornton Wilder's remarkable play, Our Town. How many of you have seen Our Town? I think just most of us, either in movie or play. But you may be acquainted with the scene when Emily, the young bride who had died in childbirth, was permitted by the stage manager to come back to life for one day. And she chose her 12th birthday. And the experience seen from the outside was not a happy one. Everyone, her brothers, her sisters, father and mother, were too occupied with busyness even to stop and see the others, or to stop and enjoy life itself. And in the middle of everything, she stops to say these things. She said, "Oh, Mama, just look at me 1 minute as though you really saw me. Just for one moment now that we're all together. Mama, just for a moment we're happy. Let's look at one another." But life went on, preoccupied and fleeting. And at last she turned to the stage manager and said these words, "Oh, I can't go on. Oh, it goes so fast. We don't have time to look at one another. I didn't realize." So all that was going on, and we never noticed. And so she asked to go back to the graveyard. But before she left, she turned to say goodbye with these celebrated words. "Goodbye, goodbye, world. Goodbye, Grover's Corners, Mama, Papa. Goodbye to clocks ticking, Mama's sunflowers and food and coffee and new iron dresses and hot baths and sleeping and waking up. Oh, Earth, you're too wonderful for anybody to realize you." And then she turns to the stage manager and says, "Do any human beings ever realize life while they live it? Every minute?" "No," he answers. "The saints and poets, maybe. They do some." So I say to you, as we enter upon a joyous holiday season, let us join the saints and the poets and cultivate delight. So may it be.